So, did you make contact with aliens? Were you taken to another planet, to a mothership? How did they communicate with... Can you tell me what they look like? Can you tell me how many of them there were? Were you given food?
But the teachers are alive. They're not books. They are the very living essences of nature itself.
What a strange person.
Unbelievably powerful supercomputer that's running our reality, and we don't have a clue as to how to operate it.
So when maybe you or somebody else creates an AGI system and you get to ask her one question, what would that question be?
What's outside the simulation?
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family that explores the consciousness. I'm the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Okay, so we're here with Santos Bonacci, and for over 30 years, Santos has been studying the ancient works, researching, compiling, and translating the text to produce an easier to understand compendium of AstroTheology. And he deals with the subject of syncretism, bringing together all fields of knowledge and wisdom and showing the interrelatedness of all things. Syncretism is the opposite of division and disunity and covers all the big topics like theology, astrotheology, natural science, astrology, reclaiming dominion, breaking the fictions of religion, science and law, and the holy science, an ancient science based on the workings of the solar system, which is the science of as above, so below. These sciences enable one to develop wisdom and enlightenment far beyond what this world currently has to offer. And you can check out the website at universaltruthschool.com. Thank you so much, Santos, for coming on the program. I really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
So you have a interesting point of view about all of this stuff, and I've been watching your videos. I mean, most people have for the longest time on YouTube is where I found you. When I first started understanding this, the theology, the Christos theology, and the seasons, I mean, the stuff that you go on and on about how all of this, how astrology and all the stuff in the sky, our constellations and everything is showing us what's really happening on the earth. And man, I got to tell you, with all these transitions and stuff happening right now, I'm really curious as to what your opinion is on what we're actually going through at this moment right now.
Well, 2 days ago, we had a solstice with a new moon and in Cancer. So that's very significant. The cusp of Cancer and Gemini, very, very significant. Just a little ways over is the galactic plane in between Gemini and Scorpio, but it's also considered along that plane, you see. And big, big portals of streaming energy, transcendental, transformative, energies, frequencies come through these portals. There's always a new cycle beginning with these kind of solstices with new moons. They're very, very significant. Cancer is the waxing half of the year. Now there will be waxing, and it will be mostly for the economy. Waning. What am I talking about? So Cancer is the point. Now the sun is waning all the way down to the Tropic of Capricorn. It'll be going down, 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 smaller arcs in the sky, shorter days from now on. So that tells a story of, it's a turning point in history. I think July 4th is going to be very significant. There's some interesting, Mercury is retrograding, as well as Gemini, Venus in Gemini. So she will go direct in 2 days. That will be a good shift. And then when Mercury goes direct as well in about 15 days, that will also be very, very good. So I just think we're going to have a couple more weeks of some really, really rough stuff. I've just had a 7.7 earthquake here this morning, and for 20 seconds, the whole place was shaking. All the townspeople are concerned and leaving their houses and walking around wondering what's coming. So I could have guessed that there would be an earthquake with Mercury retrograding, especially in Cancer. Cancer is the sine wave amplitude. The wave balance is 21st of March and 23rd of September, the two equinoxes. That's when the wave is balanced, the sine wave of the ecliptic of the path of the sun. When the sun is in Cancer, crabby crab, and Capricorn, the capricious, this denotes the feminine wave amplitude and displacement from center. So solstices usually do that. They really just turn at right angles in the universal energy. And so our cosmos is feeling it, and earthquakes will be a part of it. Earthquakes are caused by an abundance of gas in the crust of the earth, and it's the gas seeking to come up.
So this is with all these different planets in retrograde too. It does feel like there's a big change coming. But I'm curious to like what you thought that. And I'm sorry you guys had an earthquake. That's kind of scary, right? But there's definitely a big change happening. I can feel it in myself. I can feel it in others. And what I have believed is, after I've talked to all of these different magicians and mystics, is that, that are we really made up of these energies? Are we our astrology, or is it really like the weather? You hear people say, "Oh, it's just the weather. It's these energies." And others say, "No, you are your astrology." What do you think about that? What's your opinion on that?
Well, astrology is electromagnetics. That's what it is. And so as the 10 spheres over our heads turn and move through the heavens, they're always aspecting each other differently, and always inside the 18-degree zodiacal belt, and always transmitting energies from the signs, whether it is right now watery, liquidy Cancerian energy from the sun, and Gemini was mental, spiritual energy from the air element. So as they turn and turn and turn, the electromagnetic field is manipulated or conditioned or activated in such a way that it will always be different. Now, as these planets go through their cycles, Moon 28 days, Pluto 248 years, the slowest, they are always aspecting each other through those signs and transmitting that energy to the earth. And not only do the frequencies change as we breathe and move through the earth, but so does the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, the sexual, and the physical sensual natures. And those planets are telling a story. They are casting a story as they turn and turn in their toroidal fields, and always blending their energies in an infinite mix. And every 4,240,000 years do the planets ever come together in any sign. And so the last time that happened, it was in Aries, and in 1962 it happened in Aquarius. All the 7 visible planets were in Aquarius. This is historical, beyond comprehension. So it is the age of Aquarius. It did start in 62, and in 2012 the 50-year cusp ended, and we have been in the 7 years of woe of the first 7 years of Aquarius, and at the end of this year, on the 21st of December, that will be 8 years, and 8 years is death and transformation. So this is the year 2020. From 2012 to 2020, it's that 8-year Phoenix rising cycle. So we can look forward to the sun now waning all the way to Capricorn, 21st of December, and that will bring down the political infrastructure that we have, which is a synastry. Some like to call it an oligarchy, a plutocracy, fascism, communism, socialism, but it's a synarchy. And a synarchy is a mafia kind of gang of economical hitmen and criminals who control the purse strings of all the governments. And the Vatican and the Rothschilds and the Windsors have enabled this system, and DC is the military-industrial complex arm of that system. So I'm hoping that the military have come to their senses, and this military coup is going to be a good one, but I won't hold my breath. I'm watching them. I do see the Q posts, and I used to support Trump very, very much and got a lot of flack for it. But I do see some good things there, even though there's a lot of theatre for the masses. I think underlying, I'm hoping that what I'm seeing is good, and the info and intelligence that I get from people who are very, very well researched and in the know. So I'm hoping that that's coming good, brother, but I'm not going to, promote anything other than self-improvement and self-sovereignty and self-determination.
I mean, that's what. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. We've depended on systems and government and the medical industry. Every system you can imagine has not only let us down but betrayed us in a way, to the point to where if we don't take our own individual power back and live our own lives, we can't come back together as a community and get our power back. I think this is all about consciousness. There's a lot of people that are having out-of-body experiences, crazy dreams. There's some crazy stuff going on, like a big spiritual awakening. And I do believe that that's how we're going to beat this thing. Because, I mean, riots and standing up to them, that's one way to do it. But if we can all learn how to actually travel out of our bodies and do things spiritually, we stand a better chance at a fight against this, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is what's happening. It's going to take care of itself. This is how Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness returns. That's the return of the Christ. The orbs, all 10 of them, including the sun, are transforming their frequencies. New energies are coming through. History is recreating itself before our eyes. The new cycle will be good for the ascended ones and not so good for the descending ones, who are not interested in any kind of alchemical optimization of the self and to embrace the greater, higher Christ consciousness that we all have an inheritance to. And it is our duty to become Christian and Christ-like. It is metaphor, you could say, for the awakened individual who now lives and dwells with God, with Sat Chitananda. And so this is what's going to be happening for the harvesting of the crop of the 144,000.
Man, that's some pretty intense stuff. So when you say the 144,000, I was brought up to believe that my father told me that there's only 144,000 people that are going to go to heaven, right? Like go up in the sky, go to heaven, that kind of thing, and that's it. Are you saying that it's like that, or is 144,000 mean something else?
Now, the 144 is a number that is just ubiquitous. It's a constant feature of our reality and timeline. It is the amount of, there's 144 lunar mansions every year. They are 60-hour mansions where the moon transits any one of the signs of the zodiac. She goes through 144 of them every year. If you calculate the petals of the 6 chakras below the crown chakra, which is 1,000 petals, the 1,000-petal lotus, you have 4, the bottom chakra, 6, the sacral, 10, the solar plexus, 12, the heart chakra, 16, the throat chakra, 96, the third eye chakra. This is 144 petals multiplied by 1,000. So when someone does their alchemical ascension, ascending through those consciousness levels that we have, the 7 levels of the menorah of the Jews, and the 7 plumes of Quetzalcoatl, and the 7 colors of the rainbow, this is the electromagnetic spectrum. When you go from the red to the violet, the scarlet to the violet, then you become the priest, because the violet chakra is in Aries, the cerebrum, the cerebrum. The cerebrum is the Lamb of God, Hiram Abif, as the Masons would have it, Hiram above. When you reach the Lamb of God through the chakra systems, now, as it says in Revelation 14, and I saw and look, the Lamb of God standing upon Mount Zion, the spinal column, and with him 144,000, and they were all dressed in white and singing a new song. See, this is the song that we need to sing, a new frequency. And you had to regenerate the nervous system and to regenerate the Christ consciousness within us, which we had fallen from. It's just our natural state. It's for us to achieve. It's for us to attain. And the ones who don't do this through drug addictions and illicit sex and lying and stealing, hating and cheating, they will not receive this blessing to sing a new song. They will not go into God's kingdom, which is within. They will stay without, as it says in Revelation, outside of the dogs and those grinding and gnashing their teeth, because they're lazy. If you rock up to a cinema and you rock up with $2 in your pocket and the flick is $5, the guy at the office, regardless of whether you're gay, black, white, short or tall or any other race, he's going to not allow you to go in because you didn't do enough work to raise enough money to pay for the ticket that everybody else paid to get in. So you're going to have to go out, work your lazy ass off for an extra $3 and come back when you got the money. And then you can pay the ferryman and you can go to wherever you want to go and watch whatever film you want. But if you don't do the work, as it says in Stairway to Heaven, and she's buying a stairway to heaven, and Jesus says in Revelation chapter 3, buy gold from me so you can become rich spiritually. Buy salve for your eyes so you can see. Buy fine white linen so you can become white as angels and pure. And that's our task. That's our magnus opum, and that's our perennial philosophy. And anyone who deviates from this path, they will suffer the consequences. There's only one path, purity, the right-hand path.
And so, do you believe that the mystery of alchemy, that's what it's about, is the marriage supper of the Lamb? Because I know you don't like religion. I've heard you talk about how religion has pretty much destroyed the truth and covered it up and controlled us psychologically. But the mystery is talking about the marriage supper of the Lamb, and these two forces that come together that we need. It's not easy work, I guess. That's what you're saying. You got to do the work. Or am I wrong about that?
Yes, of course you have to do work. If you go to university and you don't do your homework, you won't get your matriculation. You're not going to be qualified, and you can't blame the university. You've got yourself to blame. So when you do this process, you then unite with the Lamb of God in the alchemical wedding, which is the marriage of the Lamb and the bride in Revelation, where he says, all ye who are wishing to come to the kingdom of God. In other words, the Lamb is always wanting to be married with the lower nature, the bride. The bride are the 7 chakras who have fallen, and they are different consciousness conditions. They are limitations on us. And when we learn how to activate our chakras, we then are balanced, and we have our spiritual body activated, our Merkaba, and our Christ consciousness. And now we are in Sat Chit Ananda.
Yeah,
existence, consciousness, and bliss.
So what are some of the things that when you say like the gnashing of teeth or suffering, this is kind of what I'm worried about, because there does feel like there's a divide going on. Do you mean that they're just going to go back through these karmic cycles, or do you really mean like there's things are about to get really bad kind of situation?
Well, there's the ones who have gone beyond the point of no return. They are the fallen ones. They are the artificial interlopers on this plane who have taken over the economy, banking, finance, governments, and basically the strong arm of their military arm are the Jesuits, and the Freemasons are their foot soldiers, and all the other clubs with the Demolays and all of these gangs of criminals, the Knights of Malta, the Pope, the Queen. This is their gang. They have gone beyond the point of no redemption. They will not repent. The ones who follow them, like your useless idiots, the Antifas, the Black Lives Matter, and all of these goons, they need to repent. If they don't repent, hell is waiting for them. Hell is a condition, firstly, and a place, secondly. And so they will go to the frequency of hell, and they will have to learn not to do any harm. They are going around causing harm. They are causing destabilization of the nation. They are causing harm to property. They are causing harm to people, killing people. They are manipulating reality. They are what's the word I'm looking for? Culpable or guilty of not only crimes but what you would call a sin. Okay, sin is a spiritually ethical, moral, more so than a crime. But these are both on the left-hand path, people who carry this out. Some of those are not beyond the point of no return. So it's about reaching critical mass on the right side. As we improve and grow and optimize, so will the world and our timeline and our reality. Whereas it's uncertain. It's their choice.
Fantastic. The book that you wrote, I'm really interested in, The Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation. This seems to be like, where you're talking about the relation of the mineral salts of the body to the signs of the zodiac. Does this correspond with the alchemists and what they were teaching, or is this something totally different?
Yes, it's George Carey and Inez Perry who wrote the Salts of Salvation and the Zodiac. So they worked on Schussler's tissue salt remedies astrologically. They were the first ones in history. Dr. Schussler, who studied the cremated remains of humans and animals, found these 12 salts consistently always in every body. So 100 years later, Carey, the astrologer, using the tissue salts to administer minimum of 3 salts according to your birth sign, since 9 of the gestation months are nourished in those salts. The date of birth of the individual, hence the sun sign, is going to be deficient. And so what he did was he administered those 3 salts. So, for instance, I was born on the 24th of March. I'm Aries, so I take the 2 Aries salt and Taurus and Gemini, the 2 succeeding signs. So that would be potassium phosphate Aries, sodium sulfate Taurus, and potassium chloride Gemini. Then you have a further look at the birth chart and see what other debilities are in the charts and aspects that might provoke weaknesses in other signs, and you would take those salts. In my case, Pisces, so I add iron phosphate to my list. And so these salts are frequencies. They are triturated minerals which vibrate at the highest frequency. I believe they radiate and not vibrate because they are able to penetrate the deepest of any of the minerals through the cell lining into the mitochondria. So these homeopathic remedies are exquisite for healing on a high level, and I've had great results from people, always good results, never bad, never negative. And I've probably put tens of thousands of people onto the tissue salt. So I've had millions of hits on my tissue salt publishings, videos. So that's millions of people who know about it. And so when you know, as the Hippocratic Oath originally said, toward the end, it added, if a medic or a doctor is not an astrologer, he does not qualify to be a doctor. Astrology was crucial. You can kill someone if you're operating on the wrong moon sign. For instance, when the moon is transiting Leo, Leo is the heart, the moon is the bleeder. Open heart surgery when the moon is in Leo would be tantamount to murdering the individual. And this is why, if you go through medical records, you will see this. You will see all of, a big rise in deaths with certain operations during the moon transits of Leo for heart operations. When the moon is transiting Aries, that would be brain surgery, surgery to the throat when the moon is in Taurus, surgery to the lungs when it's in Gemini. Cancer is the stomach, so you don't want to be having your doctor operate on you. You will bleed to death. And so there's many other lunar cycles, let alone all the other planets that influence us. We all know that at the full moon there are more crimes reported by the police. There are more people coming in with accidents in hospitals. There are more crazy people on the streets, and there's more misbehavior. That's the power of these magnetic orbs. They change our electromagnetic field, emotional, mental field, sensual field, psychological field, the soul and the spirit field. And so we are flowing through a flux, a river of changes. And there are cycles that repeat, and there are cycles that continue to expand in our lives. So as you know your chart, you can then manipulate your chart and maximize the chart's strengths and diminish the chart's weaknesses. Hence, you can optimize enough in one lifetime to ascend completely.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, because most of us kind of suffer those energies before we realize these types of things. So that's really cool. So I know you're big on supporting syncretism. I probably should have talked about that to begin with. Is syncretism, how do you define syncretism? Is it coming together? Is it love? Or is it something higher?
Well, I'm going to go to Wikipedia to get the answer.
There you go.
Syncretism, Wikipedia, is the combining of different beliefs while blending practices of various schools of thought.
Okay.
Syncretism involves the merging or assimilation of several originally discrete traditions, especially in theology and mythology of religion, thus asserting an underlying unity and allowing for an inclusive approach to other faiths. Only syncretism is inclusive. All other faiths are exclusive. You can't be a Jew and to a Jehovah's Witness and be saved. You can't be a Jehovah's Witness to a Jew and be saved. So they are exclusivists, and they are not going to bring any kind of unity, and they're not going to bring any kind of teaching that we once had one perennial philosophy, one Prisca Theologia, one syncretic system, and the peoples of the world who seemingly are different are using different words for the same teachings, and there is only one teaching. Just as as cars distinguish themselves by their mechanical function, if I'm in Spain, I can't call it a car. It has to be either a carro or a coche. In Italy, it's a carro or macchina. In France, it's a voiture. But it's still the same
still a car.
Mechanism,
yeah,
vehicle, or object that we are referring to. And this is how stupid we've become, that we will even kill people because they call Jesus Allah, and they think there is a difference. There is no difference. Jesus is Jupiter's Zeus, the benefactor in astrology. And Jesus, Jupiter or Zeus stands on Mount Olympus, and Jesus stands on Mount Olives. Olympus, Olives, it's all the same story. They all have their 12 titans or the 12 disciples or apostles or tribes or sons or pillars or stones or whatever it is. All throughout the Bible, there's 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. Every second number is 12, and it just sticks out like dog's genitalia. It's right there, and you can't miss it. So when you know what you're looking at and you know how to do your hermeneutics, there's a word for you. All the Christian scholars call the science of interpreting the scriptures, the exegesis for interpreting the Bible in particular, is called hermeneutics. That sounds very much like Hermes to me. Hermetica, hermetically sealed, hermeticism, Hermes, Thoth, Moses, Nebo, Mercury, the communicator. And that's what it is. So when you know your hermeneutics, your intellectual communication and how to understand scriptures, there is only one teaching. There is only one theology, philosophy, and system. It's electromagnetics, pure and simple. The Bible is not a literal work. It is a literary work. It holds the seeds and the kernels of great truths which cannot be expressed literally. It would take billions of volumes to make that book, that work, literal. And even Jesus admitted, or the Gospel of John, if all the words of the Lord were ever recorded, we would need to fill the world with books up till the high, high heaven. Therefore, Jesus spoke in parables. Why? To keep the truth away from the stupid ones and to give it to the wise ones. When you don't want your children to understand what you're talking about with your romantic partner, your wife or your partner, you then say, well, we're just talking about the birds and the bees here. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And off the little children go. They are protected and they are none the wiser. But you can continue talking and making your innuendos and having a nice romantic time.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's what the Bible does. It's to blind the stupid ones and to enlighten the wise ones. It's a double-edged sword.
So earlier today, we were working on the radio station. We're looking at this article that has the IRS building. And I grew up in Masonry. Like all of my uncles are Masons and everything. And this was in, I think, Virginia or Maryland, something like that. You look at the building is a Masonic Temple, the IRS building. And it made me think, Jesus, man, like what's going on here? Because when you read their books are all about bringing in the new Egypt, and it's beautiful, and they give charity, and they do all of these great things, and they're about fellowship and brotherhood and, unity. And yet we suffer because of them. Our whole government was structured on the Masonic structure. When you get an inside look at a Masonic temple or ritual, you can see how this government was made. And it's, I think you're right. It's something that I had to deal with because I really believed in it. I thought it was something good. And some of the teachings are good, but the whole idea of secrecy for power, for money is really what's killing us here. And I don't know, like, what we can do about it other than expose it. But what do you think our next steps would be to do after? Because I believe the truth is really going to come out here. But then where do we go? Do we make our own communities? Do we just work on consciousness? What are your opinions on that?
We do what we can. I do what I can. Other people do what they can. Some people have a lot of money. They're giving money. Some people are healers. Other people care for the old, for the hungry, the homeless. I can't do, well, I can. Here in Mexico, it's very easy for me to leave 20 pesos to someone who's begging. That's like, for me, that's like 5 cents. And they just smile and they just run off thinking, wow, I've just hit the jackpot. So they can buy a loaf of bread and some whatever they want. And so that sort of stuff I've built. I'm a very functional part of my community here in Mazunte, Oaxaca, where people love me and support me and help me so much. I've never, ever witnessed a community more helpful and beautiful as the Mexican community down here in Oaxaca. And I'm functioning really, really well and enlightening as many people as I can. Sometimes I've had a few arguments where people just, it's like talking to a mask wearer and telling them, a COVID-19 mask wearer, and telling them of all the agendas behind that stupid rubbish. And, you get that stare look and then you start arguing, and I'll just wish them all the best and say, sorry, but the facts are these facts. I have to tell the truth. I've researched it and this is true and this is how it is. And so I don't, back down and necessarily create contentions. I'm not I don't look for contentions. I look for peace, but I do fight when I'm attacked, and I give people a good serve, because I don't care for their ego. I don't care if they hate me and they disrespect me. They heard the truth from me, and I'm not a nice guy, so they happen to, hear it from a not so nice guy. If you want to have your ears tickled and go to nice guys, well, that's not me. There's plenty of channels of sweet talking guys, and they've got their theories and opinions. I don't do opinions. I don't do theories. I do only truth, because there is only truth.
Well, I got to respect that for believing that. Like, if somebody believes in something, I totally respect that. I believe we should respect everyone's beliefs, but at the same time, if it's causing, like if it's causing war, death, disruption, bad things, then at some point in time, we got to come out and stop it. Religion itself and dissension amongst the religions it's terrible.
Very true. The problem we have here is that the people's beliefs that they have and cherish are wrong. Mm-hmm. It's okay to believe that grains are good for you, and that others think, no, grains are bad for you, fruits are better, vegetables are better, nuts, seeds, and blah, 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 or the colour red, or jazz is better than blues, and that's okay. You're not harming anyone, and it's not untruth. There are untruths that have been permeated on this plane deliberately to harm people, and it's our duty to help people eradicate those erroneous beliefs. It's not our duty necessarily, it's their load, but it's our duty to not withhold it from ones who are seeking it, and also from displaying it and living it and teaching it.
Yeah, I with you on that. Like I don't know how, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years, but I got to think that more people are going to wake up to this stuff. And I am very grateful for what you've done. I know that throughout the years, when you were one of the first people that started teaching this stuff before everybody got into it, before it was cool, and before even zeitgeist and all that. You were teaching this, AstroTheology, trying to tell people the truth and stuff. And still to this day, does it seem like the more, because there's a verse in the Bible that talks about the wiser you get, the more sorrowful you become. Does it really seem like that? Does it really become to where you're an actual hermit? And it's okay. If you're peaceful, that's fine. But because I'm kind of a community guy, but at the same time, I want to seek truth and do truth too. So, it's kind of a complex. It's kind of a confliction.
Certainly certain ones are called to be sannyas, or how would you call it, a sadhu, or the guru, or an ascetic, a hermit, Hermeticism, Buddhism. All of these teach of the ones who become enlightened and detach themselves from the world. That doesn't mean you can't function in your community, not at all, and you don't have money and work in the world or have a job. No, that doesn't mean that at all. You're in the world, but you are not part of the world. So, just like you go to an orchestra and you are there, you're not in the orchestra. You're listening to the orchestra, you enjoy it, you interact with it, take what you need, and then you are yourself away from that phenomena. So the same with the world. It's just a phenomena. It's just a show, a theatre. It's a distraction sometimes. It's a bigger universe than your life. And as you expand your consciousness, you become more in harmony with it, because you see its cycles and you detach yourself from the material, illusory timeline, and you become more eternal-centered, where there is no time and you don't have the same mental constraints and conditionings of the world, where you follow all of their rules and regulations and their conventions. You become unconventional. So I find it hard to function in societies where there's a lot of sheeple, sleeple people who they think they're all good and they're so well positioned, but they're not. There's things that they're doing which will make them descend. Flesh eating, for instance. How many good Christians eat lots of pork and chicken and fish, and this is murder, and they're murderers, and they will not ascend. There's no possible way you can be eating flesh, rotting corpse, and imagine that you are going to ascend. You will never ascend. You will acidify your body, make it toxic, and pollute your alchemical process, and you will not spiritualize. You will animalize. Animals will animalize you. There's one thing. Another thing is ejaculatory sex. In the scriptures, it's pretty clear that this is condemned and that only pure sex is going to cut it when it comes to ascension, and recycling the sexual fluids which come from the chrism, which are the materials with which we will nourish our nervous system and generate a 13th cranial nerve, which is the Christ nerve. Once we have transformed our nervous system by saving the secretions, saving the seed, not crucifying the Christ daily in lustful, illicit sexual behavior. You can have as much sex as you want with your loving partner. There's no constraints there at all. Sex is a divine gift. It is a pathway to ascension because it is the electromagnetic way to stimulate the chakras as the Kundalini and the Kundabuffa rise. That coil of electromagnetism rises through your chakra system, turns your vortex and rotates your magnetic field centered in the heart chakra. And now you are a radiating being full of passion of Christ, full of truth, full of bliss, and full of
energy.
Knowledge.
You get a lot of energy from it too. Mass quantities of
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. So.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something I've been wanting to talk about and even write about. It's just like such a sore subject, especially nowadays, because they glorify that stuff. But when you talk about that, people kind of feel guilty. Well, I've done this and I've done that. It's like, so what? Everybody's done this stuff. You can always. That's what the forgiveness thing is for. That's what wiping yourself clean and trying to do stuff right is for. But it doesn't. It's very confusing because there's teachers out there that teach, that's what you're talking about is the real alchemical process, is the real, and then there's others that teach that, it doesn't matter whether you, I guess you could say spill or not spill. And even I read some books by Samael Aun-Weor who talks about some of this is black magic or black, what do you call it, black tantra, and some's white tantra. It gets kind of confusing, but it is one of the biggest buried secrets. And I don't think it should be a secret. I think it's that very thing you're talking about is what's caused all the suffering on this planet, a massive ripple effect, actually.
Yep, it is. And this is all being generated by the stars. As Genesis says, I give you sun, moon, luminaries, and stars to give you times and seasons and for you to know where you are. And that's why in Job 38:32, God says to Job, do you know the Mazzaroth? Can you tell it forth? Do you know when Ursa Major is coming, when Orion and the Pleiades? Do you know these stars, my stars, who cheered and applauded when I made the creation, the electromagnetic creation? And Job just had to think about that one. See, so this is what's going on in the scriptures. It's a book about electromagnetics, the divine, and how it works. It's the mechanics of electromagnetics, and that's why it's teaching you always about the 7 and the 12, the 7 planets, the 12 signs, the 7 Olympians, the 12 Titans. So they work together, active and passive, generating time cycles, timelines, and generating experiences and the cycles of necessity for our souls to evolve.
Yeah, I think right. That's great. I'm glad that you're saying that. But I think people get afraid because they're like, well, what about, I'm here, I want to live my life. I want to have fun. I want to have pleasure, and I want to, experience love and what I came here to experience, see things, do things. And I don't think you have to I don't believe that you have to let go of any of that to do this spiritual work. I think it just enhances it, actually. But like I said, the media glorifies all kinds of stuff. So I'm pretty convinced that the media is the ultimate weapon right now for whatever is trying to control us, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all artificial. It's all commercial and corporate. It's all satanic, Luciferian, run by the Jesuits and the Freemasons and all kinds of adrenochrome addicted pedophiles and people traffickers and nasty, nasty psychopaths. And they are going to be removed. They're going to be flushed out. And this is happening on this plane right now as we speak.
Yeah, totally. So when we do just to go back to the astrology, just to be clear here, when we do our birth charts, we pull our birth charts, there's a ton of stuff about Western astrology, then there's Eastern and sidereal, all of that stuff. What's your approach to it? Because it all seems to work from when I look at it. It all seems to work in some way, but it's pretty confusing, honestly. The different types of astrology. Which one should I pull? Which one's really mine? What do you use for that?
What system or what website?
Yeah, what system is it? Eastern, Western, sidereal, or tropical?
Tropical.
Okay.
Tropical is the most accurate system. I'm not saying sidereal isn't, but there's much more you can do with tropical. Medical astrology, physical astrology. The signs, when you look at the physical features, they only correspond with tropical. There's no correspondence with sidereal. Sidereal does not penetrate the body as tropical does. You can only pick people's sign using tropical system, and you can only do medical astrology using the tropical system. The tropical system is based on the ecliptic. The sidereal is based on the constellations of the zodiac. They precess against each other. They're never aligned, but the alignment of the tropical system is the first and foremost important system because it is closer to us and it is controlled by the degrees in which the sun and the planets are on the ecliptic, not with respect to the signs which are a backdrop. They are to be measured from the ecliptic. And besides, the house systems are the same in tropical and sidereal. So that's why there is accuracy in both systems, because you cannot, if the sun's, for instance, if you were born when the sun's right on the horizon, it doesn't matter whether you've got a tropical or a sidereal system, the sun will be right there on the ascendant in both systems, in the first house.
Gotcha. Yeah,
regardless of whether they think it's in this sign or that sign. It's the house that predominantly matters, because that's how you do your readings and that's how you do your predictions and your prognostications and divination and diagnoses. That's how, because through the houses and the tropical system foremostly.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Because I know a lot of people are asking that as far as our audience goes. There's so many people interested in mysticism, magic, the occult, esoteric system, hermeticism, more now than ever. And, as well as I do, there's so much information. They just want to kind of know where to start. And, before we let you go here, is there anything that you would like to promote to our audience, or have them, or just any last words that you'd like to say to the void walkers out there?
I would like to say, please do your due diligence, research things, do not swallow all of the things that are coming through the media, wear masks, social distance, quarantine, stay at home. Please look into what is the motive behind this. It's very hard to wake people up that are conventional. If you are conventional and shocked by everything I've been saying thus far, well, you really, really might want to take this advice to do some research and find that there is a synarchy behind all governments of the world that have taken them over, hence the lockstep and the lockdowns, and they are all working for one new world order agenda, which is not your friend. So look into it, research it, and otherwise suffer the consequences. I can't help you. And my work as a message has been done. I have no blood guilt.
Right on. Thanks so much for coming on the program, Santos. It was really a pleasure having you on here.
Thank you, brother. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.